Hello, and welcome to the Multi-Story Thinking Podcast. This is a special Clerkenwheels series, a set of conversations that sit at the intersection of design, movement, inclusion, and collective action. Clerkenwheels is a multi-day cycle ride that brings together designers, thinkers, educators, and allies to raise funds and awareness for United in Design, supporting outreach programs to help open up the built environment professions to people from underrepresented backgrounds. Along with my friend Tom Bourne, we're riding from the University of Plymouth to Clerkenwell Design Week from the 15th to the 19th of May. But Clerkenwheels is about more than cycling. It's about who gets to participate, whose voices are heard, and how we design systems, spaces and cultures that are genuinely more inclusive. Across this series we'll be speaking with people who are supporting the ride, hosting stop-offs, sponsoring the event, riding alongside us, or simply sharing ideas that challenge how we think about design, access and impact. You don't need to be a cyclist to be part of the conversation, just curious, thoughtful and open to change. So whether you're listening as a designer, educator, business leader, student or supporter, welcome. Alex Dauley and Sophie Ashby are co-founders of United in Design, a charity founded in 2020 in response to the lack of inclusion in the interior design industry. The charity was built on the principles of mentorship, education and industry collaboration, offering internships, training programs and partnerships with design firms to ensure a more inclusive future for the industry. In this episode we discover how United in Design grew from a response to frustration, what meaningful inclusion actually looks like beyond statements, strategies and good intentions, why partnerships, listening and long-term thinking matter more than quick wins, how designers, educators and organisations can play an active role in widening access, and why, if you're worried about the training, you can always get on a Lime bike. Alex and Sophie, thanks very much for joining me on what is a special Clerkenwheels edition of the Multi-Story Thinking Podcast. We're here to talk about United in Design and, in a little way, the sort of charity event we're going to be doing. But I wanted to dig into a bit of the sort of background of United in Design, just to give a bit of context and how it got going. We were really fortunate enough to introduce Clerkenwheels on your 5th anniversary, which is an amazing achievement. And whilst I've known about you for some years, thinking that you've been going 5 years, it's like, it sort of surprised me in a way. And obviously that's a big chunk of work you've done and it's a great sort of milestone. But can you just take us back to the start of the whole thing when you set up United in Design? What was going through your heads and what were you trying to achieve?
The murder of George Floyd in 2020 prompted the world to sort of look at themselves and say, there is definitely issues, problems with, black and brown people being, persecuted, in this case, horrifically murdered, issues with diversity, inclusion across the board. And in our own industry, lots of people put black squares on Instagram. It was the kind of thing to do at the time. And I think at that moment, Sophie and I started reaching out to people and actually saying, okay, well, if you're outwardly saying there's an issue and a problem within our own industry with diversity and inclusion, what is it that you are going to do about it? And I think we quickly realized that there wasn't anything that was already set up to try to tackle this. It was something that needed action taken, not just anything performative and words. And Sophie and I, doers for sure. And so therefore we decided over Zoom, we were introduced over Zoom. It was the height of lockdown. We'd never met each other before, but we just had this really lovely synergy and a shared belief that we could make a difference. And so United in Design was born, and we didn't know anything about starting a charity and we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, but we were wholly committed to making a difference.
So you were both thinking the same sort of thing and were connected. Is that right? How it worked, how it happened?
Yeah, I kind of used the opportunity to really have a good look at myself and my studio and my business and, be honest about how well I was or wasn't doing in my intention to run a diverse studio. It wasn't diverse and I thought I was trying to do that, but I realized that, there's quite a few things that you have to address if that's what you really mean. And we wrote all these things out, which I think as a studio we wanted to improve upon, whether it was access via mentoring or internships, work experience, having a good look at our own DEI policies and that kind of thing, and started to put together an outline of a plan to move forward if one was trying to do better. And it was sort of at that moment that I was introduced to Alex. And Alex had had personal experience of the success of a charity. Don't know if you want to explain about your chance to dance, but that was quite an
Yeah,
inspiring kind of concept for us.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, my daughter, aged 8, she went to a South London primary school, and she had danced, since she was little. But Chance to Dance is an outreach program run by the Royal Ballet School, and they go into schools where ballet maybe not the number one sort of extracurricular activity on these children's sort of wish list, or they just don't know about ballet, and so they teach these ballet classes in these schools, and then they select some children to go off and then join this Chance to Dance program. And off the back of that, my daughter was selected, and off the back of that she was then selected to join the Royal Ballet School's junior associate, and then went on to mid associate, and she trained with them for 5 years. So I
Oh, that's
knew that
amazing.
outreach and community outreach absolutely worked. And I myself had a mentor when I left KLC School of Design. So I knew mentoring was something that would work as well.
Yeah. The interesting thing there, I suppose, is that you were sort of looking inwards at what you were doing and thinking, how can I improve? But what prompted you to make that step to do something more concrete in setting up the charity? Because, it's a first step, easy enough, isn't it, to sort of think, well, I'll be a bit more inclusive. I'll try and, update my policies. But it's a big step for you to set up a charity. And what was the thinking behind working out what you needed to do? Did you know what you needed to do, or did it just evolve step by step? A bit, that sort of it, movement from just thinking it to actually being
Mm.
positive. How did that come together?
Well, for me, it was I'd done all of this introspection and wrote quite a long, vulnerable statement, which I then put on Instagram, and it was just being very honest about how I feel about how well we'd been doing and what I intended to do about it going forward. It was kind of like a promise. And I just had this extraordinarily overwhelming response on the whole of positive comments from my peers mostly who said, they felt the same and that if I figured out how I was going to tackle it on a practical level, could I share it and they'd love to be involved kind of thing. So it wasn't really with the intention of setting up a charity, but then Alex and I got talking and, hearing about a chance to dance and the ways in which it can help. We sort of started to look around and we did speak to a few other charities as well in a similar space, but there just wasn't anything specifically catering to our industry. And it was just a sort of dawning realization that if it didn't exist and we thought it should, then perhaps it might be the case that we're going to be the ones to do it. So it wasn't at all part of my grand plan in life. It happened in a way by accident, and I could never ever have done it on my own for lots of reasons. But Alex, Alex and her enthusiasm and energy, we just kind of were like, right, well, let's do this then.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's really inspiring. I guess it's the moment when you think of taking responsibility
Mm.
rather than just allowing someone else to do it. That's a really
Yeah.
brave step and I guess a point where you you feel confident enough to take the next step to be that kind of leader. Was it a scary moment then, or did it feel kind of comfortable to move into that role?
It was scary. I think for me, as the white privileged interior designer who's benefited from all of the things that we're trying to kind of share with the people that we're helping, it was quite scary for me to kind of put my neck out, and I was just terrified I was going to upset somebody or do something wrong or get it wrong. Quite easy to do that, and so, but you know, basically on the whole, everyone's just been incredibly supportive of what we're trying to do, and it's kind of a no-brainer. Like when you look at it, it's yeah, we haven't had much resistance from anyone in terms of support or yeah, wanting to help us.
Yeah, I found we did a bit of kind of diversity inclusivity work down at the University of Plymouth, and whilst it was initially targeted, it was all about recruitment and retention. It was targeted at a very narrow sort of sector of the possible student body, but we very quickly discovered that everything that would work for that group would work for everyone else, and that whole idea of it being more inclusive, wider impact was something that made things a lot easier. So this is going to benefit everybody, not
Yeah.
just the people we're targeting. So 5 years later down the line, I mean, what you've come a long way. So what are the kind of things you think you've achieved during those 5 years?
I mean, the landscape of the industry from our perspective is forever being changed, to be honest. If I think back to when I was training at KLC and I was the only black person on my course, to being in rooms where I was the only, to now, you don't pick up a publication without seeing representation. You don't go to events without seeing representation, be that, people on panel discussions, you know, even just walking through the design center and design week and focus and things like that, the people attending, the crowd is far more diverse because people, have told us that United Design and our the charity as a whole has given them confidence to feel that if they attend these events or they, reach out, that they're going to be welcomed, treated with respect and listened to and heard. And I think that is definitely down to the charity and also down to the people and the businesses and the magazines that have supported us and also drive forward our message that we are an industry that wants to, support and represent people from all backgrounds and all walks of life.
Mm. Do you find any resistance to sort of that agenda, or how was it received across the board? I mean, I think from my sort of perspective on change, people sometimes resistant to change, even though it might make sense or be fairly something you can't really argue against, but the actual physical process can be a bit overwhelming. How did you overcome things like that?
I think, look, the biggest thing was kind of for me was the once you had the conversation with people and you explained, people widely kind of got it and they understood and they got on board, but it was just starting the conversation.
Mm.
So I think, talking about inclusion and diversity, it can be a difficult conversation for some people. And, much like Sophie said, nobody wants to get it wrong. People don't want to use the wrong language and upset people. And so there was a little bit of sort of, oh, I'm not sure we want to, but we're not, how do we do it? And I think
Mm.
that was, where United in Design kind of stepped in and was successful because we really wanted to simplify it for people. And we led very much with, it's not accusatory. We're not saying you're not inclusive. We're not saying your team doesn't look, diverse because of something, that is, untoward. We're just saying, look, maybe you're hiring from the same places over and over again, and you just need to cast the net wider. So it was very much led with from an educational standpoint, an understanding that we have far more similarities than we have differences. It was always from a place of kindness and empathy and doing the right thing and just opening the door to amazing designers ultimately are going to make your practice far, just more, more broad and, because you're listening and having opinions now from people from different backgrounds, different cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds, all of that coming together is enriching your practice.
Yeah, that's makes a lot of sense. And I've always thought that the argument for getting a more diverse design, body of people is about who we're designing for. We're designing for a diverse culture, particularly, the emergence of understanding around neurodiversity. We need people who understand that, people who've got different opinions, like you say, to be able to design those diverse environments. And so that I think that it's hugely important. Just in terms of what you kind of were offering, you mentioned the educational piece. You've obviously got some programs of different sort of interactions and support. Can you give us just a bit of background of what you set up first and the rest of the kind of elements? You've got the outreach element that, of course, we're fundraising for, but also the career pathway placement pieces as well. But it'd be good to hear a bit of information about how you sort of brokered those relationships and how you maintain them over time.
Yeah, I think today it's a little bit different to where we started 5 years ago, and we've got real clarity and focus now, not least because we have this extraordinary person, Eman, who who's running our charity and has
Yeah.
applied her brilliant brain to how we do things. But I think today it's three things. It's the career pathway, which is our internship program,
Mm.
and in short, that is an opportunity to earn a 4-month internship position within a studio or maker, anyone within our industry or a magazine who is participating with United in Design in this pathway program. It's paid, it's 4 months, and it's down to the individual to shine, show how good they are, and hopefully gain full-time employment at the end of that. So over the last 4 cohorts, 4 years, we've created 24 internship positions. And this year for 2025-26, we've tripled the number in the cohort itself. And, like we at Studio Ashby, we have one of the interns at the moment. Her name's Sophia, and she's brilliant. People are fighting over her. Everyone adores her. She's hugely talented, really capable, a lovely person, and just adding loads of value to the team and teaching us things about programs and AI that we don't know about. She's really a gem. So I suspect she's not going anywhere afterwards, I hope. So yeah, the career pathway, it was number one, obviously extremely important that you are paid properly for your time so that you're able to, actually take that opportunity on. But I think we had something like 98% success rate in terms of full-time employment off the back of those opportunities. So, it's
Quite
working.
amazing, isn't it? That is sort of, I don't know, it says a lot about the value of the internship, but also the people you're selecting. Obviously, there's a
Hugely
nice
talented.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're really, a lot, I think over 150 odd people apply every year for those positions. And it's through Interior Educators, the charity that Graham Booker set up, um, that we find all of the interns. So it's through education, as you know.
Mm.
So we have a network via Interior Educators into the, I think, 56, is it, interiors programs across the country at BA and MA level, who sort of funnel us applications for the program. So that's the jewel in our crown. And then the mentorship program has recently been restarted, and that's matchmaking experts with mentees and with sort of specific alignment considered with problems to be solved and working through those quite intentionally. And then the third thing is the education and outreach, which maybe Alex can speak more about.
Yeah, so last year we reached 3,500 young people through our education outreach, and we go into schools and colleges, and they kind of have like careers days and things like that. And we chat with them, we have a little stand, and we talk to them about a career in interior design and what that means, and trajectory and salary expectation and things like that. And that is something that we absolutely want to grow, and Iman is leading the charge on that, because we want really United in Design to be, as we've said, is kind of that pathway. So, we're explaining, when they're younger, this is, definitely a career that you could participate in. Then we have, the internship program, and then we have mentoring. So, the mentoring program, for instance, there are people on there that, already maybe in business have set up their business, but they need a little bit of extra help. It could be somebody that wants their portfolio to be looked at. It's maybe somebody who's prepping for an interview. So it's really lovely, because lots of people come into this industry, and, much as I did, sort of later in life as well. And so it's not just for people that are sort of university age. It's also for career changes later in life, and the mentoring program certainly supports them in their journey at that stage.
Yeah, so we're raising money for the outreach program, and yeah, I mean, we're excited about that, because we think that you're sort of feeding the future of design, aren't you, by catching them young. But I guess it's about uh, introducing people to a career which perhaps they may not have initially thought about. And I know there's quite a lot of kind of cultural assumptions around what are good careers, and which are going to be successful, and raising the awareness of the potential to be successful as a designer is quite a challenge, isn't it? Because people think it's a sort of, I don't know, back in the day when I was studying, it was sort of frowned upon to be going down the creative route. It's sort of like almost a waste of talent. But actually it's, as you know, there's loads of different careers within the industry and loads of opportunities. So it's just trying to just open people's eyes to that. So we're very excited to be helping to contribute to that. And in terms of getting involved, what are the ways in which, well, or particularly maybe with the outreach thing, how can people get involved as, I don't know, schools or universities or colleges, and what are sort of kind of partnerships, or maybe that would help you to deliver the program?
With outreach specifically in mind, I know that Iman is currently working on a careers fair with the London Design District, but I think which is going to sort of be an annual event that she's putting together. But I think for us, it's quite tricky, I suppose, to get into every single school. So we have sort of like some information that we've put together, that we worked with at KLC when I was there, and we were delivering sort of schools outreach. That would be great that we could send out to schools, because that's an easy way to get information out to them. We've also got quite a lot of companies that have sort of samples and things like that, and they're always trying to sort of get rid of them. And I know there's lots of schools that want to have, for their textiles department and DT departments and things like that. So I think pairing up design firms with local schools to give those kind of that practical support would be great. Kind of, and then that can grow obviously regionally then as well, because we're very mindful, we're quite London centric, and we know that you're down in kind of Plymouth, but I feel like through the outreach program we are going to be able to expand our reach for United in Design, across the country. And people want to give back to school children and want to give back to kind of people on their educational path. So I think we will be trying to do a lot more work with the universities to then find out which design practices are linked with the universities, and then maybe speaking to the LEAs within that particular area, and trying just to join the dots. But I know that is a program of works that Iman is working on, and the money that will be raised with Clerkenwheels will help support in expanding that programming.
Yeah, I think we've, as I'm an academic at Plymouth University, and the idea of folding in some of those courses from interior educators, some of the universities to the program sort of feels like a natural extension of what you're doing, and then enables it to be a bit more geographically spread. So hopefully that will come together. Now, so the big question is, are you getting into training to join us on the ride?
I was looking at it in my diary, and my brilliant EA, who has completely changed my life, said, I just wanted to check, do you have a bicycle for the Clark and Wheels segment that you're joining? To which I said, no. I was planning on getting a Lime bike or something. And she
Yeah,
was like, I think that might be cheating.
I think, well, no, I
So,
think a line bike would be a good way of doing it because
okay.
you know,
As long as that's not frowned upon,
no,
I'll
no,
be on the
no.
Lime bike. Yeah.
We expect, well, there might be a spike in the use of line bikes on that day, but which would be interesting. But honestly, there's no pressure for you to put in some hard miles for us. But the the offer's always there, of course. But we're really excited about the whole prospect and looking forward to that. I think what what I'd like to do, and we could wrap up shortly because I think we've covered everything. But just thinking about what 5 years you've done, is there something that a way in which you could sum up how things have changed, or your feelings after doing it all, or do you feel like you've only just got started? What's your kind of feeling of where we're at, in terms of where we were?
I think it's night and day different, if I'm being perfectly honest. If I think, as I say, back 10 years when I started, 5 years when we started this, it is a completely different landscape. And I think the conversations, I think it feels just kinder. I think when you came to the 5 year anniversary, the feeling in that room and the energy in that space really conveys everything that Uniting Design is, to be honest. And there is this overwhelming feeling, I think, of just optimism and hope for the future, and the fact that people are listening to each other's stories now. And I think that's nice. And there's a lot more kind of understanding and patience and empathy within people. And that to me has been the most overwhelming sort of outcome. And I'm incredibly proud of what, from Sophie and I sort of Zoom conversation to now. It's unbelievable, really, what we've been able to achieve. Obviously, not siloed, with huge amounts of help from, the industry as a whole, and so many amazing businesses, and Iman. I mean, I don't know. I think Sophie and I, we're not from this world of charity. We also run our own businesses. So there's only so much time that we can kind of give to it. And then we came across this amazing power and force, Iman. And whilst Sophie and I may look back and think, oh gosh, haven't we achieved a lot in 5 years? And what on earth is there that we could possibly do, over and above? She's like, we are only just getting started. This is like the tip of the iceberg, and we're like, oh my gosh. But she is so driven. She sees things in a completely different way. To us, she is so driven and committed. So actually, I can't even tell you where United Design is going to be in another 5 years, because I think Iman has huge grand plans, and we are along for the ride to support her in any way that, Sophie and I can. But she is very much like, we're going to expand, and we're going to help even more people, and we're going to bring the industry together, which is really, really lovely and exciting. So I think it's a bit of watch this space, to be honest, and see where she takes us. Yeah,
That sounds exciting. I
very
mean,
exciting.
it's amazing. I guess whenever you start anything like this, no, not many people do this, but I don't suppose you imagine what you would have achieved in 5 years. You probably couldn't have written it all down, but when you look back, it's amazing how much you've actually done, pulling the people around you together, and once you start something like that, people, like a man will turn up, won't they? What you need turns up, you sort of attract that and and you're building some momentum, which is very exciting. So I'm looking forward to standing up on the 10th anniversary.
Yeah. Some people have said, I mean, and they probably tells, they tell me, they tell so, it's changed their lives.
Yeah.
It's really changed their lives. I mean, one of our interns went to work, finished her internship in the first cohort, went to work with Peter McGitch for a number of years, then works with Rachel Laxer now. So she's working internationally in projects, around the world. And she's also set up her own rug company. So she's now a business owner.
Mm.
And, all of that came from, her applying for the internship, for the career pathway. And, just watching their growth over the last few years is incredible, and they're really making a huge change within the industry and now becoming business owners in their own right. So it makes it all worthwhile.
Have you seen, I mean, the impact on the people that are involved directly, organizations running the internships and the internees? Obviously benefit, but have you seen an impact of what you're doing sort of outside of your organization in the wider industry? Have you recognized sort of changes happening that you aren't directly involved with, but perhaps a part of, the ripple effect of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think you're as Alex sort of said at the beginning, you're just seeing everyone think about it early on in whatever they're doing, whether it's a magazine or a TV program or a panel talk or how you hire within your firm. I think it's not for everybody yet, but for many people it's part of the thinking, and they're conscious of it, and they're making effort to do better on that side of things. But I don't know. I think just back to kind of reflecting on the last 5 years, I think the 5 year party for me was just, I mean, I find everything about United in Design so moving and so emotional, and it's very hard for me to kind of say much without getting really emotional sometimes, because it's just, my day job is being an interior designer, and that I love very much. And, I think it's really important how interior design can change and enhance the lives of the people who inhabit those spaces. I fundamentally believe it's an important thing, but it's definitely a luxury. And at the level that I'm doing it, it's mostly kind of high-end residential and five-star hotels. It's very, very rewarding, but United in Design is rewarding in a very, very different way. And standing up with Alex and seeing, all the past cohorts pretty much of interns who we've helped, and how they've flourished and grown, and how confident they are, and how strongly they stand in their place within the industry, and they have their own networks and contacts and careers just flourishing. It's just like so inspiring. But also to look around at the faces of all the trustees and the magazine editors, and, in the early days, the kind of committee members and ambassadors, all the different individuals who've contributed. And, being a trustee of a charity is quite a lot of your time. And you have to really show up to, what is it, four meetings a year, and you have to do things in between and help and share your contacts and ideas. And we've got a number of really important, extraordinary, talented, busy people giving their time to the charity, and it's thanks to them in huge part as well that we are getting places. So yeah, it's just wonderful, the community element for us, for me, for the trustees, for the interns. I think it's brought our industry together. I don't know if I would have got to know so many other interior designers and players in wider industry had it not be for United in Design. And that's just great to be kind of sharing resources and thoughts and feelings on how things either challenging or wonderful, because it's not straightforward all the time.
Mm, absolutely. And I think lots of people have said they want to get involved in the cycle. So I think we probably should have some sort of starting point for the last leg. somewhere in London where we can say, everybody gather here. I don't know, how far is
Yeah.
it from your studio, Soph, to Clerkenwell? Is
We've
it?
got to try and find a distance that more people are comfortable with, which probably quite close to Clerkenwell for lots of people.
Yeah,
But yeah, we are
a
riding
mile,
in.
a mile.
We are riding in from Farnham. We're stopping off at Porto Romano on day 4, who obviously partners with you guys. Cycling in via Chelsea Harbour, and then into town. So yeah, we're going to work out some kind of muster points for different levels of stamina and ability. But yeah, be delighted. I mean, even if you just rock up in the last 100 meters, we'll be happy to
No, we
see
can
you.
do a mile. I think we could certainly
We
manage a
can do a
mile.
mile for sure.
Yes. Okay.
Sure. We'll
Oh,
have all the
oh,
gear on.
yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. I hope the weather's okay. I'm hoping the rain in January and February will use up all the rain for the rest of the year. So yeah, it'll be good. I think we've got enough actually now. What do you reckon? That was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Just a huge thanks to
Oh,
you, for sort of offering to do this ride, which is no mean feat. I mean, it's a huge undertaking physically and lots of organizations. So I know that we are all really, really grateful at the
yeah, thank you for
charity.
that. I appreciate that. I mean, it's sort of I like almost want to thank you as well for taking this idea and agreeing to it sort of thing because we had this idea of cycling to London and we wanted a bit of purpose to it and it linked in with some of the work we've done before and it thought this is a good idea. What we didn't know is whether you guys would be interested,
Of
and
course. Yeah, we're so touched and
well, I mean,
excited.
it seems like an obvious thing, but when you're thinking up an idea, you've just got no idea how other
Yeah.
people are going to respond. But yeah, we've been delighted to be a part of it, and being at that 5-year event was quite a special moment. Just like you were talking about the warmth of the crowd, if you like, the friendliness, the smiles, the energy was just infectious, and it just we thought, well, we'd already sort of committed to it, but that gave us the boost to think, yes, we can do this. So yeah, we're gonna look forward to rolling into Clerkenwell and seeing you guys on your line
Yeah.
bikes.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should do one little practice.
I'd like to thank Alex and Sophie for taking the time to speak to me. In just 5 years, United in Design has moved from an idea born out of frustration into a programme that is actively reshaping access to the built environment professions. They've built trusted partnerships, created meaningful outreach, challenged institutions to reflect on their practices, and most importantly, opened doors for people who too often never see themselves represented in these spaces. What stands out isn't the scale of the impact, but the care, integrity and persistence behind it. This is a long-term change built through relationships, listening and doing the work properly. United in Design reminds us that inclusion isn't a side project, it's a responsibility, and the results speak for themselves. If you've enjoyed the conversation, you can find out more about the Clerkenwheels ride, the route, the people involved and how to support the project at clerkenwheels.com. We'll be riding from the University of Plymouth to Clerkenwell Design Week, setting off on Friday the 15th of May and arriving at Clerkenwell Design Week on Tuesday the 19th of May. You can get involved in lots of ways by donating, sponsoring, sharing the story, hosting a stop-off, or simply helping to amplify the message around inclusion and diversity in the built environment. You can also find links to United in Design, whose work this ride directly supports, helping to create clearer, fairer pathways into creative and spatial professions. I'd like to thank the team from United in Design for supporting our ride, Sophie Ashby and Alex Dauley, and behind the scenes Eman Akbar, who's been working tirelessly to put things in place, Julianne Webster from Industry Publicity, who's helping us with the marketing and PR of our initiative, and Tom Bourne from Select First, my co-rider, for thinking up the idea, coming up with the name, and keeping me motivated whilst I try to do my training. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, share it with someone who might enjoy it, and help these conversations reach further afield. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Thank you.